What's up, guys? You saw the title. One of the ecom founders we've been working with actually just hit consistent 10K days a couple times in a row, and it's very consistent. And as you can see here, over 3 ROAS, all subscription revenues, absolutely insane case study. And the plan for today is this: we're gonna reveal the entire creative strategy with action steps, so you can do the exact same thing, right? Then we have a cold friendly offer section in this, meaning I'm gonna break down exactly how you can build an offer which is so good that a completely unaware person is just going to take it. And then I'm going to explain the talent acquisition funnels that we've basically set up in order to get people, which is the highest leverage thing that you can do in your business overall. So all the kind of stuff that no other person really talks about on his YouTube channel, and this is what I kind of plan today. All right, so let's get started on the creative strategy. So I'm just going to get right into it because I don't want to waste your time at all. Basically, what you need to understand, and that's already like something which a lot of people get mixed up on, and while a lot of people don't really talk about, I don't know if they know it or not, but basically you should always and have to always structure and categorize your ads as much as possible, right? That should be the goal. That's how you track stuff properly. Meaning, there's 3 different types of ads that it can happen or they can upload in your ad account. First one is competitor based, then we have unique, and then we have iterations. It's only these 3. Now, both of them do lead to iterations because the 80%, right? 80% of all the ads that should go into your ad account should actually be iterations. This is the 80-20 rule. It's, a lot of people like to say, okay, you should always do mostly new concepts or whatever, because that's going to keep your account alive. But that's not the case. And the reason why is because if you test 80% new concepts, it's just going to eat up your entire margin. Okay. You're not going to be profitable. Meaning the 80-20 rule, meaning 80% of the stuff should actually be something which is just iterated on the stuff that was already in your account. I'm going to talk about exactly how, right? And then only 20% of this. And then within this 20%, right, you want to keep 80% competitor based and 20% unique. So this actually unique thing here, right, which is different from competitor-based iterations, is only the 20%, the little 20% fraction. So it's a very small part, but yes, this is actually what's going to keep your ad account alive over a longer period of time, right? Now, this right here, what you see, and just to clarify before we get into the strategy, is actually the testing order. This is what you have to understand too, because the highest leverage thing or the highest impact test that you can do, and always you should focus in the beginning on high impact tests, is the product. Then we have the avatar for each of those products. Then each of those avatars can have a bunch of different desires, and you can talk to those in a bunch of different ways and angles, right? And then each of those angles and desires can have a bunch of different hooks. And the lower down you go on this testing order thing, basically the more specific the test gets and the smaller the impact of the test. Meaning what you should actually do instead is focus on the highest leverage things possible, okay? And that is always going to be more up here in the testing order, right? So the very, very first thing that you're going to want to do is a so-called hook test, right? So-called hook test. Why? Because what we're going to do here is we're going to set up image ads with actually literally just text on them, right? So white background, black text on it. You're going to spend like a couple dollars each of these images. You're going to actually optimize for purchases, but you don't actually look for purchases. Once these ads are in the account and running, what you're actually going to look for is clicks, CTRs, right? You're going to look for the highest CTR ads or hooks of these basically. And so what we did specifically is we launched 2 products for the same avatar. So what a lot of people do is they launch, one product, and then they launch basically multiple avatars. They test multiple different avatars, see what sticks. What we did instead is actually the founder that I've been working with actually really wanted to make this specific avatar work, and therefore we turn it around. And obviously it makes more sense because if you test more products than avatars, it's a higher impact test. Therefore, the results, so the differences in the results will be greater. And so that's what we did. We had the same avatar, but for that one avatar, we launched multiple products. And so therefore, we did separate hook tests for both, right? So a couple things about this hook test that are really important. Obviously, you're just going to launch an ABO with this. You're just going to spend a couple dollars each of these images, right? It's not there to get you sales. You just want to pre-validate these hooks in terms of CTRs, right? This is going to be the content hook, the text hook, really important to track all your variables, by the way. But essentially what this is just a breakdown of pre-framing, of already testing the most important part about your ad before we actually go out and test actual creatives, which is just just the hook test. Okay. Now, usually you want to position yourself as broadly as possible on the awareness stage spectrum. I would say anywhere from unaware to product aware makes a lot of sense. If you're already at scale and you have a lot of brand awareness, then it might actually make a ton of sense for you to also test most aware hooks, especially for like, some special sales. If you want to launch creatives for that coming up, maybe even for Q4, if you already want to test the best stuff now, go ahead, right? Obviously, it's going to be a lot of offer focused things. So it's a little bit different, but from unaware to product aware, it's pretty much always just the same thing, right? Unaware is always some type of story. Problem aware is some type of call out. Solution aware is some type of comparison with another solution. And then product aware is pretty much just mentioning the product name and actually probably just comparing it with another actual like competitor selling the same stuff, right? This is kind of like the range of the spectrum when you want to position yourself in. So for example, if you have a hook which is like super unaware, which is telling a story about like someone random, some UGC person telling about their experience, that's unaware, right? If you call out a specific problem, that's problem aware, and so on. And so you want to, once again, do as different stuff from each other as possible in the first test. Reason is this, because that's going to have, once again, a higher impact, a more of a difference when you test that first. And so once these hooks are running, a couple of KPIs that you look for, first of all, you want to look for a CPM, which is smaller than $70. And then you want to look for a click-through rate, which is above 7%. Okay. And so the reason why we're looking for a CPM below 70, obviously, because we don't want to take anything that is super expensive to advertise to. We don't want inflated CPMs. We just want something which is okay. Keep in mind, 70 is still high, but obviously this is just text, right? So this is not engaging at all. This doesn't really do anything in terms of keeping people on the platform. So obviously Facebook's going to punish us with bad CPMs, but above 70 is still too high. Okay. Now, click-through rates are actually the most important metric here, because you're going to look for 7%. And it's actually not that hard to get a 7% at least with these hooks. And the reason why is because it's just text. Like the text itself, the hook itself is the only thing that can go wrong. Like it's super easy to get low CPCs with this hook test, but you're not going to convert with these. Okay. So that is really important. Maybe you do. Fair enough. I've seen obviously hook tests get sales. If you do, that's a very good sign, but it's not usual and it's also not expected. Okay. So once again, we have another testing order thing here when it comes to then transitioning the winning hooks here into actual creatives. And that's, pretty specific. And I'm going to walk you through how that works and why and whatever. Basically, the testing order is this: hook, visual, benefits, mechanism, objections, and call to action. This is basically the testing order when it comes to, once the ads are already running inside of the ad account. And so what we did in terms of transitioning the winning hooks, because we've had quite a couple which were above 7%. And by the way, just not just test 10, like we did 50, 60 or whatever. And then we transitioned the winning ones, just a couple of the best ones, into actual ads. And so we launched basically, once again, at the same time, statics. And this is actually what I'm going to walk you through first, because it's very easy to transition, hook tests into static ads. But we also then launched video ads. And so when it comes to statics, it's really important to understand that it's a very quick transition, because take a look at this, right? Obviously it's an image ad here, boom, with just text on it. So it's the same exact thing. It's the same format. It's only text, right? But with the actual image ad, what's going to happen is this one's actually going to have a visual on it, right? This one's actually meant to convert, not only to get good CTRs. So what's going to happen is CTR is going to drop in this transition, but if it's already pre-validated, you're not going to get a super high CPC, but this is actually going to convert super well, right? So what is super important to understand is that, when you do image ads, when you make statics, there's a couple different things that you have to keep out, just have an open eye for, because when it comes to the visual of which visual you pick, it's actually really important. There's some huge differences in how each of them convert, right? This is one more takeaway, by the way, from this video. Every ad converts very differently, and conversion rates are actually mostly determined by your creatives, and not specifically only by your offer. Okay, so we have problem-based visuals, outcome-based visuals, product-based visuals, mechanism-based visuals, and then we have memes or trend visuals, basically, right? So these are like the 5 ways of visuals that you can have overall. I would say the most common ones are problem aware, so problem based, and then we have product based. Product based is the one with, whatever, classic supplements, and then you have the picture of the supplement in the middle, and then around that is just like benefits or some type of text. Okay, that is a very product based thing. Now, problem based, on the other hand, is actually when you showcase visually the problem. It's an outcome based is another cool one for less aware stuff. Obviously, the thing is, the more the visual is about the product itself and not anymore about the problem, what's going to happen is it's going to convert better, but the CPCs are also going to go up, right? So you can play around with which visual type you use in terms of what CPCs you want and you need. And also, this is going to be super interesting for the iteration process. So just so you've heard it, these are like the 5 ways of, doing visuals when you transition these winning hooks into actual creatives, okay? Now, when you then do video ads, and this is actually super interesting because this is the harder transition. It's more difficult to do this. Once again, keep this testing order in mind from like hook, visual, benefits, mechanism, objection, and call to action. And so what you're going to do is basically the entire creative strategy at this stage relies on, okay, you're going to make a creative test, you're going to launch it, you're going to see what performs and what doesn't, and then you're going to iterate. Meaning you retest and you manipulate the data that you buy. And that's, even if it takes 100 rounds, you're going to keep doing it. And so when it comes to what to iterate and which things to iterate on or whatever to do, there's always a specific thing, a specific metric that went wrong. Because what exactly to iterate on, which is what I said in the beginning, obviously we want to focus on the 80-20 rule, meaning we want to have 80% down here in the iteration stuff, right? So we only want to launch stuff, 80% of the stuff that we launch has to be iterations. So how can we make sure that that actually happens? Well, you take the best ad of the creative test and you look at the weakest metric. The weakest metric, always you find out by going deeper and deeper and deeper and then comparing. And so I want to walk you through why and how. So let's say you look at the best ad, right, in terms of overall performance, and then you go deeper. So ROAS is not okay. Okay, fair enough. Let's go deeper. If the ROAS is not okay, then it's either conversion rate or CPC. Right? So, but once again, that doesn't tell us a lot. If it's the conversion rate, you go one layer deeper and see, okay, is it my add to cart rate or is it my actual like drop off to the conversion rate? That already tells you a lot more. If it's the add to cart rate, there's specific fixes for each of these. Now, if it's the CPC that is actually the weakest metric, then once again, you go one layer deeper and see, is it the click-through rate? Is it the CPM? Which part is it, right? And if it's the CTR, for example, then you go one layer deeper and say, okay, is it my hook rate? Is it my 25% video views? Is it my 50% video views? Is it my 75% video views? Is it my pitch rate? What exact process or what exact part is it specifically, okay? And that is the most interesting part already, because if you figure this stuff out, then you know exactly what to work on. And so I'm going to give you a specific kind of like, things that you look out for, things that you do. Essentially what you have to do is overall, if you start with, for example, the hook rate, if that's the weakest metric, and you've validated the hook itself though, previously in the hook test, then you know that it's not the text hook. So that leaves you with obviously visual hook and audio hook, for example. That's what you make the iterations on. Now, if it's the drop off or one of these, for example, you know that there's in that part of the script something that went wrong. So you could change the order, you can make it shorter, make it longer, kind of change the visuals. Once again, same thing, right? If you have a pitch rate which is too high, so too many people watch until the last second above like 2%, meaning your call to action is too weak. Or also you could make your ad longer. It's just like, this is what you make your iterations on. You're just leaving money on the table. If you have a CPM issue, you're optimizing the wrong audience. So yes, you could change up your visuals. You could not rip content, for example. You could change it to a different market. There's a bunch of things that you can do, right? And obviously same thing for add to cart rate. If your add to cart rate is very weak, then you know that, maybe you're getting good CTRs and low CPCs and you get cheap clicks, but the clicks are not very high quality because you don't sell enough. So you add in disqualifiers into your ad, meaning a price drop, a specific call out, stretch benefits, objection handling, anything that could make the ad longer potentially, but also will increase the conversion rate, right? Now, if you have a good add to cart rate, like I'd say 15% on an ad, but you have a really bad conversion rate, so there's a huge drop off, what you do instead here is actually add in more fear of missing out, like elements that create that more urgency, for example, because this means that people have a lot of second thoughts on your store, and that's not what you want, okay? And so when you do iterate this, you just keep doing it again and again and keep retesting until a concept really works. And you always just iterate on the best stuff. Think about it this way, because every step that you iterate, every more specific change and iteration you make, the result and the impact of that test, this is important, is going to get smaller, okay? So if you try to iterate your way out of something which is terrible and to begin with, it's going to be a very hard life. Like, you're going to have a very hard life doing that. It's going to be a very hard job to do so, meaning what I would recommend instead is always take the best 1 to 2 ads and iterate on those, make those better, right? And then everything like we said, okay? So once again, ask yourself then after the retest, which metric is it? How can you make it better? Retest and do this until it is ridiculously profitable, okay? Now, the reality. So how did that look like for the brand owner that we've been working with, okay? First test, we had a cost per acquisition of around $15 to $30. Click-through rate was around 1 to 2%. We did have a really high conversion rate though, so we had a little bit of a CTR issue. AOV was very healthy, $50 to $70. And so the only thing that we focused on was getting the click-through rate up, right? So we were operating mainly with statics, right? Meaning, if you look back here, obviously we did a lot of iterations in terms of the visual, for example, because we've been validating these hooks here, okay? And so what you're gonna do is, what we actually did is we just made variations on the visual mostly, and that actually had huge impact. And then there's specific rules, specific SOPs for, what types of text actually should be put on an image ad. For example, you start with the benefit, then you have like the desire, then you have, for example, objection handles or mechanisms, or it could change the order of each of these. But yeah, just so you know. Now, test 2, we went more specific, and so now we're actually working on VSLs, right? Iterating those right now, and obviously adding in stretched benefits to increase the lifetime value, to already pre-frame that it makes sense to use this for a very long period of time. Stretched benefits are just long-term future benefits, right? And then we obviously want to position the benefits of buying more, right, as good as possible, meaning we want to increase the average order value of the business, okay? That is also a pretty powerful thing. Now, main goal that we're actually working on right now is removing him from the business, right? So basically from taking him to be in the business, actually to be, or working on the business. And so really just managing people, talent acquisition, like I'm going to talk about in this video. So everything around that, okay? Now, this is something which you're going to focus on at some point too, like really just focusing on talent and managing people and hiring people. Very important. Cool. So second section, which is really important to reach numbers like this, to reach a scale like this, or to just overall find success in e-commerce, is going to be to have an offer which is so good that people feel stupid, like actually feel stupid saying no to it, okay? And that is the topic of the cold friendly offer, right? Cold friendly meaning a super unaware person that just woke up this morning having no clue who you are and that they even have a problem actually are ready to buy and give you their credit card information, okay? That is a cold friendly offer, right? So a cold friendly offer has a couple different, criteria that I want to break down here. First of all, you should look for a consumable. It just makes your life a million times easier if you have subscription offers, and actually it makes sense and people, stay subscribed. Then obviously we have, we want to go from just selling a product to actually solving a problem. Then you have to keep the value equation in mind by Alex Ramosi. Then you want to do price anchoring. You want to price anchor. And then obviously you want to A/B test the hell out of everything, okay? Now, let me walk you through what exactly we did for each and one of these steps, okay? So the first part, which is consumable, was pretty convenient because he actually has a supplement product, a supplement brand. So it is very, very consumable and also like very, very convenient to bundle up with other products, but also to bundle up more of the same style, right? And so what we did is basically we offered a lot of free gifts and shipping, and we limited those only to the subscription offer though. So we made those exclusive for the people that actually were subscribing, and everyone else just got got the product. So we mixed up this first step, which is the consumable and getting people on subscription offers, with this here, right? Because the one-time purchase just sold the product. The actual like consumables of the subscription offer solved the problem. And that was very, very powerful to do the same thing immediately. Right. Then we went from in the beginning kind of being unsure of like, okay, should we position it as like 1 month supply, 2 month supply, 3 month supply? We actually ended up positioning it as buy 1, buy 2, buy 3. And whatever they pick, they just get delivered monthly. And they know what they sign up for. And the crazy thing is, churn is not higher if you do this, right? So the big fear of him was whenever we, for example, like let's say someone buys the buy 3 option, but he gets it monthly, he's going to be obviously upset about, oh, why don't I get this every 3 months? But that's not how it works. People who buy 3, and actually it's not written as 3 months supply, but actually buy 3 and they subscribe to it, they know exactly what they're signing up for. And so you make so much more money, it's ridiculous. Okay, do this immediately. Once again, like I'm giving away everything. And then obviously, a big thing is always founders think that it's either you optimize for AOV or LTV. The thing is, you can do both. And a lot of people think, okay, well, I'm going to have a subscription offer. I'm going to just do all this stuff up here, and then I will be unprofitable. I'm cool with being unprofitable because I make my money back with subscriptions. You are right, but obviously you can do both. And it's not like, as you can see here in the screenshot, $3,000 in spend, $10,000 in revenue. So it works. It clearly works over 3 ROAS with all subscription revenue and an insane take rate. And so you can do both. You can optimize for average order value and lifetime value at the same time, right? And so a lot of people that I actually work with actually don't have this mental block of spending a bunch of money for some reason whenever they have subscription offers, because this mindset of, okay, I'm just going to make this money back anyways, it clearly helps a lot. Okay, so very powerful thing, right? Then we obviously do have a bunch of like real high product quality and packaging, right? So research and development is something we spend a lot of time on actually on the cause. For example, also implementing things like kind of trying to change the avatar or focus more on older groups within our avatar. Why? Because they just have higher brand loyalty, meaning the older someone is, the less they actually quit a subscription and the less they are to try other solutions. They just settle down and get married to you, right? That's what you want. The older the customers, the better, to be fair. You just make more money. But also CPMs are higher, so keep that in mind too, right? And the second thing, obviously, like obviously said before, the solving a problem thing. So instead of selling only a product, actually solving an actual problem. And first of all, the foundation of that is knowing what the problem even is, right? So what is the very deep desire that motivates them, right? So what is the deprivation that causes that motivation? Like what is the deep thing that actually, makes them watch? What is the deep thing that makes them buy for the competitors, for example? And so you ask yourself, what's the need behind the benefit of my product? And then what is the desire behind my need? Okay. And that is how you figure out. There's pretty much only 3. There's health, wealth, and relationships, right? Typically these 3 deep desires, and you want to always tie all your stuff that you do and write and whatever to one of these 3. Okay. Very important. Now, then when you know what problem you solve in the first place, you build high AOV offers specifically for that desire, right? An example for that is an expensive bundle. So if you do sell supplements, you could actually bundle up like 4 or 5 products together, maybe add like a course to it, maybe add like an ebook and a checklist and a PDF to it. Obviously you can charge a bunch of money for that, right? And so it is going to go to like solving a problem, because it all kind of solves the same problem from different angles, and people who see that are going to think, okay, well, cool. And that is really what the cold friendly means in cold friendly offers, because a cold friendly offer is easy to say that, but what is a cold friendly offer really? A cold friendly offer is an offer which makes unaware people buy, and unaware people don't just want to buy a product, they want to solve their problem. This is really important to understand, right? And so yeah, like I said, digital products, very powerful. Value stacking, very powerful. So add like a whole stack of free gifts and bonuses that they get, and then tell them how much they save if they just take this offer. And powerful part, if you actually limit this to the subscription offers, so only if they subscribe, very important. and then charge what it's worth. Pricing is a huge thing. And oftentimes, the cool part is pricing determines the perceived value too. So a lot of people say, oh, no one's converting because the perceived value of my offer, is not matching my price. And that's usually never the case, right? There's D2C brands scaling with thousands of dollars in AOV. Of course, if it's some luxury product, yes, but you have to understand that if you can't charge $30, $40, $50, $60, $70 for your offer, there's something clearly wrong in your ads. You guessed it, your creative strategy. You don't have good enough marketing. Typically, the offer is not there to, get you from 0 to 2% conversion rate. You have something else that's a bigger problem. Okay, very important. And then if you do all this properly and you charge a bunch of money, then you're going to become the guy that's outbidding and outspending everyone in the market, just because, not because specifically you're the best marketer, which should be the goal too, but because you, with your margins, have the ability to outspend everyone, to spend more money than everyone, and that's why you do. Okay, cool. Now, third thing I've written down, the value equation. What is the value equation? Obviously, by Alex Hormozi, $100 Million Offers, very good book. Basically, the value of your offer comes down to these four things, right? Having as good as possible dream outcome that you promise, people actually believing that they're going to achieve it, meaning the perceived likelihood of achievement. Then we have minimize the time delay, right? So as quickly as possible, and minimize the effort and sacrifice. How much do they have to give up? How much do they have to work to achieve that? Now, if you maximize the top two, meaning the dream outcome is as deep and desirous as possible, and the perceived likelihood of achievement is 100%, they're convinced that if they take your offer, they're actually going to kind of achieve the dream outcome. By the way, you can do this very well with only changing the price. A lot of people look at offers and they think this too good to be true offer situation whenever they look at your offer and they think, oh, okay, well, this is just $30, right? And it's a whole bundle. And it's the opposite that happens. You get sales, yeah, but you attract the shittiest customers, and you don't want that. Okay, so raise your prices. And obviously we have the time delay and the effort and sacrifice, which you minimize. Okay, very important to do this. You can do all these things with only specific elements on your offer, for example, right? Now, what is price anchoring? Price anchoring is actually that you have a price which is a bad deal, and that's what they see first, right? And so they actually purposefully pick something else because they think they've tricked you, but yeah, you've tricked them, okay? So first option is a bad deal on purpose. That is a very powerful one, right? So if you have a buy one, get one free offer, what you do is you offer a buy one for just a couple bucks less than the buy one, get one free. What that's going to do, people are going to land on the store, land on the product page, and then they see bad deal, buy one, but then immediately after that, oh, buy one, get one free for just $5 more, right? Let me take that. Now, second thing on the other way around, it works too. We have super expensive deals at the end of each offer, meaning if the last option on purpose is something super ridiculously expensive, right? What that's going to do is whatever they take, right, is never going to be the most expensive thing in your store. And that, once again, takes away a lot of pressure from your customers of because a lot of people actually come into your store do not want to buy the most expensive thing that you offer. This is really important to understand too, right? And then really important as well is actually to have the subscription offer auto-selected, because what that's going to do is if someone lands on your store and they see the prices and they start justifying it in their head, they don't know yet that is the subscription price. Meaning only shortly before buying do they find out that it's actually super a lot more expensive if they do one time. And so they've already been justifying it though with the subscription price, and they've already made the purchase decision for the subscription price. Meaning they're just gonna say, okay, might as well, let me just stay here. Okay, very powerful. Now, how do we A/B test? So when it comes to A/B test, you can kind of also have a testing order, right? Like we kind of talked about here, because you're going to want to start as broad as possible and as different from each other as possible, and then go more specific and get deeper and deeper and have smaller impact tests as you scale, right? So for example, the first offer that we did, offer A/B test, was an offer structure test with the goal of having a high subscription take rate, meaning a high LTV. Then we, for example, had the winning structure. Now we wanted to find the right price. Then we just tested specific bundles, free gifts, right? Everything. Then we, for example, did like a collection page versus product page test. Then we started upselling, like split testing the OTOs, the upsells, right? So you get more and more specific with your offers, trying to really maximize the main thing. But for example, as you can see here, the first thing that we actually did was the offer structure test, with literally only the goal being you want to have as many people as possible take the subscription rate, right? Very important. Now, last but not least, I want to talk about the talent acquisition, which is the main constraint of this business right now, right? Because this is going to be a huge lever. So I'm also going to give you guys a little bit of insights in how the future of this brand is going to look. Essentially, 2 strategies how to get really good employees. First of all, poaching from other brands. Second of all, actually training them properly, right? Because you have to imagine really good people, really good A players that you want to work for you already have a job, okay? So they're not out there looking on Upwork and Fiverr and Twitter for jobs, okay? You can definitely believe me there. Meaning, what can you do? Well, you put in the effort to get them, right? Meaning you headhunt them, right? You reach out to them, you poach them from other brands, from agencies, whatever. You take them and then hire them and then offer them a lot of money. Be ready to pay a lot of money, a lot more money than for a normal employee, for A talent, right? For A players, for talent, really important. Talent is expensive. Now, the rule of 3, pretty important when it comes to hiring, because typically this is a rule of business. Remember this for the rest of your career. Systems break every single time that you scale something times 3, right? So for example, if you go from 3K days to 10K days, systems are going to break. It's going to be different things that take you to the next level. Meaning this is, for example, a lot of stuff when it comes to hiring. You have the wrong people, you have bad people, probably have no people, and that is typically really important how this applies to the talent acquisition too. And so when it comes to how the creative team in-house is going to be structured, like basically you have a strategist, a creative strategist who's making all the concepts, who's doing all the copywriting, who actually thinks about all this and really important does all the research for you. Then you have an editing team and a graphic design team, right? So for example, maybe it's only one guy that does all, maybe it's a separate designer and editor, for example, however we want to structure it. And then we have our media buyer, which is really important. Why? Because this guy here in the middle is going to be the bridge between the other two, okay? So the media buyer actually is the communication between strategist, right, and actually the editing team, right? Because he's going to see the metrics. He's going to see what's going on. What do we have to iterate on? Really important that the communication is good, okay? Now, right now, we're actually working on, to give you guys a little bit of a, in the future of this brand, basically we're setting up paid ad funnels for hiring people, okay? So that's going to be the next thing, obviously using paid ads, how we get our customers, actually on how we actually get employees. And this is going to be kind of how to scale the flow of leads in terms of leads, for employees. All right, so that was pretty much it for this video, guys. I hope you could learn a thing or two. I hope I could help you out a little bit. So yeah, thank you so much for giving me your most important asset, which is your attention. Thank you so much for watching. I wish you a beautiful day.